Hi everyone. Obviously this is Firefall. I'm Riley. These with the guys in the band, and we're doing a little bit of a different type of video for you today. We're looking at the production breakdown of Autumn Rain, our lead single off our upcoming EP, which is very exciting. We've got a very special guest with us today. It's Liam Knight, the recorder, producer, engineer, the man behind the EP. So hello.
You paint such a lovely picture of me, dude. Yeah, so just to elaborate on that, I am a freelance audio engineer, producer, writer, songwriter, that kind of thing. I work with bands for a living. I work out of recording studios, and I had a really cool opportunity to work with these guys at Firefall, and we worked on 3 tracks over, I think we did 3 days worth of recording, didn't we? We had a 3-day session over at Sound.
3 very hot and sweaty days, yes.
Yeah. So what we're recording that peak summer, weren't we? Like, I think what were you some of the hottest days
July?
of the year? Yeah,
It was end of July, wasn't it? Yeah.
that was it. Yeah, I remember it just being swelteringly hot. And the thing with the room that we were in, there's not any, you can't really put the air conditioning on because you're obviously recording instruments within a room. So it's not like you can all of a sudden go, let's just turn the air conditioning on whilst we're recording vocals, because all you would hear is the extractor from fan making the noise. Yeah. I've had that a few times before, and I've listened back to things and gone,
Might have been a good effect.
it could have been actually. Yeah, it could have had it as a low rumble in the background. That sounded cool. Well, cool guys, let's get into it. So like we'll start off with the song that everybody knows because it's been released. We'll start off with Autumn Rain. So where did the inspiration from that song actually come from? Like, what was the songwriting process, and like what's a typical way of writing songs for you guys? Do we normally start with guitar, or is there specific instrumentation that you go for? Like, what was the process behind that?
The process behind writing songs starts generally with me. I'm the idea man. I come up with riffs. Like I send to the guys like 7 or 8 riffs a week sometimes, and that's when I'm busy.
Yeah.
When I'm less busy, it's more no, obviously I'm exaggerating, but I do come up with the riffs, and then we just work on them together.
Yeah, is there like a filtering process for that? So like if you send over 7 or 8 riffs to people, do the guys just decide which one they like the best, or is it a case of you work on as many of those as possible?
It's roughly a case of we play it in the room over and over, and at some point you start to get muscle memory for a certain riff, and we have the saying, it feels good in the hand.
Yeah.
And the more we play it, the more we elaborate that riff, and it turns into a whole song. But I don't know, like a great man once said, a writer never finishes a book, it abandons it. So we basically never finish working on songs, and we constantly improve them. But at some point you have to say, let's just leave it there. Yeah,
that's done.
But the way it comes to me, it comes in two forms, or 3, let's say. Number 1, the most common for everyone else, you just play along, and suddenly you discover something, and you're like, oh, that sounds cool. Okay.
Yep.
So you find the riff and you work on that. The second version is I drive. It's the only time I get to be on my own. And when I drive, music comes into my head, sometimes with full lyrics, sometimes the whole arrangement, or sometimes just a guitar lick. But I will pull over quickly and I'll sing it into the phone. I don't forget it. And then when I get the chance, I record it. And the third way I make songs, which is the most not annoying, but it does interfere with life, is I dream songs. I dream, and then that song gets stuck in my head. Like I dream a whole song. I will wake up and sing it into the phone, but obviously it's first thing in the morning and I'm groggy. And then it's like if you've ever heard a song playing at a supermarket or on the radio somewhere and it gets stuck on your head and it's on a loop, and the only way to get rid of it is you listen to it over and over and over again until you get it out of your system. Well, I would love to do that too, but the problem is the song doesn't exist yet. So I have to go and make the song and then, right? So that's how I write songs.
Yeah, cool. So at that stage, so you've got the basic song idea in your head, you've recorded it into a phone, or you've got that idea somewhat written down or recorded. So at that stage, you say,
then I send it to the boys.
Send it
and
to
the
the boys.
boys say, "Oh, that sucks," or no, they never say that. But they're like, "Interesting. Let's put a pin on that." Or, "Yeah, cool. I can totally see us
And
working on that."
that is kind of like a group thing then. So you guys all decide as a collective what this song needs. I mean, so to give everybody a bit of a breakdown of your lineup, we've got 2 guitars, vocals, bass, and drums as a thing. So,
But I'll be honest. That's kind of like how it mostly used to be. We're still doing that, but see, we have the EP, but we're also constantly working on stuff, and it's becoming more and more common for us to just jam in the room together. So instead of me coming up with the riff and we all go together and make a song around that, we actually start jamming and see where it goes. And sometimes we jam for like half an hour straight, and it's like, whoa, that was.
So for that sort of stuff, do you guys like? So everybody's right, obviously, like coming up with their own part to start off with. At a certain stage in that process, do you start listening to what all the other instruments are doing? So, for example, you might go, "Oh, the bass part, for example, might need this in this particular section." Do you guys work in that sort of process, or do you very much just you stick to your own instrument and everybody kind of just works on their own instrument?
I think in times when I've been obviously riffing and jamming and stuff, I initially, if I start and everybody else joins, I initially kind of start with a riff, but in my mind I have a sense of where I want that to go, but obviously nobody else can see what's going on inside my head, so it's like everyone else just kind of fits it, and I'm like, hang on, that quite works, or yeah,
and it's kind of getting that creative vision out into the open world so that everybody can see that and kind of adapts their own ideas of what your vision is. And obviously you've got quite a few people in a band that you're competing with the same vision for, so it's obviously finding that middle ground of being able to do that.
We're really lucky that we don't generally let ego get in the way of a good song. So if we feel like there's something that works, we all play for the song. We do what's best for the song, 99% of the time, which show me another band that can brag about that. Right?
But I think that's sort of not the egotistical thing as such, but like the idea of you guys discussing your songs together, actually discussing them and breaking parts down and figuring out what is the best thing we can do for this particular section, this particular part of the song is really cool, because a lot of bands, they'll typically write and record their parts, but they won't pay attention to what the other members of the band are doing.
Believe me when I say that we have spent days perhaps or many weeks, like rehearsals in a row, working on the same harmony till we get it right.
Yeah.
And I think it's a case even in the studio. I mean, we tried ideas that didn't quite work, or we experimented with things that we didn't even think to try before going into the studio. So we allow that time to experiment, and we almost enjoy experimenting even when we think we've got a complete track.
Yeah, dude, like at that stage of the conversation, I don't know about everybody else, but I just had one image on my mind of something that we tried: the wolf noises. who wants to go into that story? Do you want me to tell it, or does somebody else want to dive ahead with it?
Go on, because
okay, cool. So we were like, it actually sounded quite cool. What song did we do it for? Was it Valhalla? Valhalla, yeah. So yeah, one of the songs that we worked on, Valhalla, we had this idea to come up with wolf noise. It actually sounded quite interesting. It didn't make it to the final version, but it actually
it's
sounded
something
like
that we do live. during that breakdown, we like to get the fans involved, and we're not one of those bands like, yo, sing along. We go, I want to hear you howl. We're all a pack of wolves. Oh, oh,
Yeah, yeah.
and everybody joins it. It's really cool. Live in the
Yeah, yeah.
studio on your own.
So I just remember us. Well, it was us two, and we were recording vocals, and I think everybody had left the room at that point, and I think everybody might have been like in one of the other rooms or outside, just getting a break, and we were like, "It's getting a bit warm in here, isn't it? It's getting a bit hot. Should we just?" Do you want to just take your shirt off? And like, the lights are actually like quite bright as well, and they're adding some extra. Should we just turn the lights off? And I just remember looking into the room and not being able to physically see you, like recording your vocal part, and going,
Oh
I'm just hearing wolf noises. Like,
Yeah,
I
because it
was
was
hopeless in the dark, and suddenly a pack of wolves.
I was like,
because I think I was sitting in the room with Jamie and Jordan, and all we could hear was just these wolf noises, and both we were all like, "What on earth is going on in there?"
We were
You
having
don't
the
hear
time
the
of our
back
lives.
attack. That's in the head.
Well, yeah, of course, because you guys were in the other room, so you
We were like, "What on earth is going on?"
What kind of producer have we hired to work on our material?
The main thing is that you all enjoyed yourselves. That's just it, isn't it?
Yeah, that was definitely my highlight of definitely that track. Yeah,
I think one of my highlights of an idea that didn't work out was the bongos. That was fun.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I'm glad you brought that up actually. Yeah, because we had the idea of like maybe this needs some extra percussion. I can't remember what song we decided to do that for.
I can't
Love
remember
Ghost.
either.
Was it Love Ghost?
Yeah, it's
I
Love
think
Ghost.
I think Love Ghost. We were trying. We
We
were
were
trying to
spoiled.
thicken up the chorus a little bit and everything, like just to give it a bit of zhuzh.
Yeah. It's that whole thing of like, as soon as you get rid of the metronome in the track, me in particular, I miss that rhythm. I miss that constant. It's the most obnoxious sound in the world, but it's nice to have something in filling that gap. So I think we had the idea of having those bongos potentially play for like, it wasn't throughout the entire track, but just for sections of that to add in that kind of rhythm. Listen, I think we got everybody back into the room at that point, and we just went, maybe not on this occasion.
Hey man, you try a million things and one of them is gonna stick.
Well, exactly. You've got to try these things to be able to like hear what actually works. Cool guys. So kind of like bringing a bit more focus onto Autumn Rain. The songwriting process behind that. So we've talked about your songwriting process as a general thing, but
Yeah, the way that song came about, I actually wrote that riff in 2013.
Wow.
Way before I met these guys. So it's gonna be 10 years this year. I've recently moved to England from Spain. So obviously the difference between the weather over there and over in England was dramatic.
Yeah.
So it was my way of coping. It was just a way of venting, like, oh my god, I feel a bit, because many people when they move to England, I don't know if you're aware, they're affected by the weather because it's just raining. And the year before, like 2012, I think it was the year with no summer, or the year with like very little sun. We barely saw the sun whatsoever. So it was just weighing heavy on. So that's how it started. Just wanted to, but the song didn't sound like that when I. It was just me hammering away at the guitar, going. The autumn rain never stops.
Because you like to get a song idea down initially, don't you? You do a lot with program drums as well, from what I've heard before.
I do, and they sound horrible.
But I think that's a really good way of getting like an idea out. So you've got this idea in your head, you write some guitar parts to it, you get some vocals down for it, and then maybe you look into getting the drums down just so you've got a rough idea. And then you can obviously send that over to the guys just so they can hear what you're going for, and then make any adjustments from there depending on what they think of playing.
And the boys, because they are absolute magicians, somehow take whatever third I send them and make it into the beautiful thing that everybody gets to enjoy. So
I think that's the joys of like collaborating with people, because I feel like you can only have so much creative output yourself. You get to a stage where you're like, this is my limit. I need somebody else to like listen to the song and maybe take it in a slightly different direction, or at least take inspiration from the idea that you originally had and maybe bring it up to something that they've got on their head as well, like an idea that they've got on their head. Collaborating that way seems to work really nicely for people. I know it works for me. I get to a stage where I'm like, that's it, my creative energy's gone. I need somebody else to listen to my work and tell me
absolutely. And what happens is like Jay, if you want to intervene here, like whenever I write something, I send it over and you go, I think I can do better than those drums you did. And then you start working on it. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Well, yeah, we was only doing it yesterday, funny enough, for a track. But I think it's fair to say that you put down the basic idea, Nick, don't you? Really, and I just sort of come along and
function.
I extend it in somewhat, and then you might put more ideas in, or I might do my own thing. So it's just basically working together to see what fits the song, really.
You've absolutely improved every single thing I've sent you. So yeah,
that's the beauty of having a proper drummer on the song, isn't
it? Absolutely.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting, because a lot of the metal stuff these days, I mean, what would you guys classify yourself as? Would you say you're more heavy rock? Would you say you're more into that metal kind of genre?
I will pass that question to Jordan or Riley.
I think we've got a mixture of a lot of things. Personally, for me, and obviously I think for the rest of the guys as well, is that we play what we enjoy.
Yep.
And so we've got our heavier metal stuff. Then we've got sort of like heavy rock stuff. But then we've got blues stuff, and we've even played some kind of reggae metal beat before as well.
Nice.
So
yeah.
like we've done all sorts of stuff, and we play what we enjoy. So it's like it goes back to the jamming thing again. When we jam, it's like all sorts of stuff comes out.
Yeah.
So yeah, we pull our inspiration from a lot of genres, but mainly heavy rock and
heavy rock. Yeah, that's kind of the route that I would go down.
I mean, I like to think that we've got enough material that if we needed to play, I don't know, a really heavy set at something like Bloodstock, we could. If we needed to play a softer set at like a wedding, we could. It's that kind of not contrast, but we can play completely different sets if we need to. So we fit into lots of boxes.
Yeah, you're very diverse in that sense.
There are intense discussions behind the scenes amongst ourselves whether we should go heavier or not, because we are totally able. But we've decided early on, and somehow I mean we go in the room, we play some really heavy stuff, like people would be surprised at what we play, and then we somehow always choose the melody route, because we've decided pretty early on that I think at some point all of these bands, whether they mean to or not, they kind of end up sounding a little bit samey in the same genre, because being in one genre kind of puts you in a box, you know. Yeah. And I mean, the guitars at some point they will all sound the same, the whatever, and all the growls, and but nobody sounds like us when we just let it out the way we want.
You do your thing, yeah, absolutely.
Without the genre, we have sounds that are doom metal, like proper doom metal.
Yep.
Or even some thrash here and there, but we have stuff that you could totally play in a club where people dance, I guess. Well, maybe not dance, but I'm talking about our song monsters, guys.
EDM music, EDM rock.
No,
we're saving that for the album.
It's not EDM, but it's groovy enough to just fit anywhere. But that helps us a lot, because we can tailor our set list according to the gig, because we've played with death metal and black metal bands on stage. We've played with Iron Maiden, for example, who are the official tribute band for Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
So, and we totally fit with those. And we played with Fury, who are kind of similar. But then we also played with, I don't know, funk, bluesy,
Wow.
whatever. and I'm not saying we're perfect fit with all of those guys, but I'm saying that for some reason it works.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things because of the way that like radio stations and labels and those sort of people these days, they want to put you in a box. They want to give you a label so they can market that to people. You guys are kind of, you're loosely in that, I'll call you loosely in that metal kind of zone. But going back to the point that I was saying with the drums, typically in metal, like with your recording process, a lot of that stuff is programmed. It is programmed drums. You listen to metal records these days and they'll do like MIDI for all of the drums and they'll play around like velocities and dynamics.
And it's quantized to heavens.
Yeah, everything is perfectly on the grid, perfectly in time with each other, especially in that type of genre. Amp sims as well. You'll typically find it's all, and a lot of it's recorded at home, especially in these days. You've got the ability to be able to record a whole record at your house. You don't need to go to a recording studio to do that. There's obviously
now you tell us. Now you tell us.
There are advantages to doing that because I find when you're recording your own stuff, like you're obviously you're an engineer. You're also performing on the recording as well, so you've got to be mindful of all your equipment whilst trying to deliver the best performance. And there's obviously disadvantages to doing that. Well, you've obviously done this before, so you know from first-hand experience that it's a pain to have a guitar in your hands, press the record button, go, oh no, I want to do that again. Then you've got to reset it and re-record again. But when you come to a studio, all of that stuff is taken care of, so you can just focus on your playing and performing.
And not only that, but you get a second perspective.
Yeah.
Because at some point, even when you're playing with your bandmates, you tend to fall into a behavior pattern. And you kind of know where how everyone's gonna react to certain things, what they're gonna like, what they're not gonna like. But then you get someone from the outside, let's say, in a way, like yourself, who listens with a fresh perspective and are in a position to say, hey, how about if we change this here and we do this here? And of course, at first we're going to go, oh, what's this guy doing? Messing around with our songs. But hopefully we've been flexible enough to try learning things. So yeah, it helps. It helps to have
that's something else that I really love about you guys, because you're open to those ideas. You do get people who are very like closed-minded, I suppose. They're like, this is the song that I've written. It is your job, my job, to just record the song.
I think those people who refuse a second opinion are doing themselves a disservice and are doing the whole artistic process a disservice, because sometimes an idea can be genius, but actually elaborating on that, on like the devil's in the details, right? Actually making it better than what it was initially is equally important, or I would say perhaps even more important.
So going back onto Autumn Rain, guys. So we've talked about the songwriting, we've talked a little bit about the production ideas. In terms of sound, I think we had this conversation to start off with, but what were we looking to do originally? We wanted it to be big, punchy, kind of this open sound going on throughout the entire performance. We didn't want to make the song sound small in any way, shape or form. So in order to do some of that stuff, there was a couple of production things that we did along the way. Lots of room mics on the drums, for example, to make it sound like the drums were in a much bigger space than what they actually were. Because the room that we recorded drums in, it's not the biggest room in the world, but there are some tricks that you can do, especially with that studio, to make drums sound way bigger than what they actually are. So in terms of like the overall sound, was the final result exactly what you had in mind?
It wasn't what we had in mind, because we've made some key changes, or should I say some key improvements. Okay. First of all, Jordan, would you like to talk about how we changed the bass and how we ended up with this really organic but also modern sounding.
So the main thing was that we added a distortion to the bass, and it helped cut through the mix a lot better. They always gave it that kind of punchy overdrive sound, which cut through the mix beautifully and made it stand out. So
yeah, so to kind of elaborate on that a bit more, so we had typically with my style of recording, I always have some form of distortion. It mainly depends on the genre of music as to how much of that distortion there actually is. On this song, there was a lot of distortion. So I normally use like a clean DI signal, get that really over the top. For your stuff, it was over the top distortion. And then interestingly enough, I tried something completely different that I don't usually do when recording bass, but there is actually, and you guys didn't see this initially, but there is a sub octave on the bass. I think I used something in the initial process just to demonstrate how that would sound, but there is actually 4 different elements to the bass. You've got the clean DI, you've got the distortion setting, you've got the amp setting, and then there is a sub bass pedal just sitting underneath that. And the reason being is because it's such a wall of sound. The bass and the guitars are following pretty much the same sort of rhythm. They're doing the same sort of phrase throughout the entire especially I think it's mainly the verses that it's just they're all following each other, so it was like it makes sense to have just a thick wall of sound. The subs are taken care of, the mid-range taken care of, the high end's taken care of, and yeah, that was a really interesting bass sound. That was probably one of my favorite bass sounds so far, to be honest. It's just this thick wall of noise, but it works.
It is lovely, and it gives it such a modern sound. That we're doing our best to replicate that live at the moment, and good luck with that.
get a sub bass pedal, get a distortion pedal if you haven't already.
And I think the other thing as well is that there was a suggestion from you, Liam, was on the final part of the song was to play a higher note, the same note but higher.
That was it. Yeah.
And it gave that kind of blend in that area, which made it sound bigger.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, because I think we only did, going back at it now, I think it would have been interesting to try and quad track the guitars. So we did just a left and a right of the guitars. And you've got 2 different, I think we went through the same amp, I believe, in the end, didn't we? We went through Nick's amp, didn't we?
Yeah, that was right.
That's it. And
we tried to.
Yeah, and
I mean, we both have this. We both have the same amp, so we just brought one of them. We played through, and still play live, through Black Star Silverline Deluxe.
That's the thing. It was peak summer at that point, so because it was so hot, we were only talking about the heat. So all of that experience is just a blur at this stage. It all kind of just fizzled in together.
What you did with the guitar tone as well is we changed valve simulation.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played through kind of a Marshally, I don't remember, a 6L6, I think. Yeah. And I think Riley played through a L34.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Sounds familiar.
And together it was just monumental, majestic.
And then obviously you've got the different amp settings, but you've also both got obviously different guitars and different styles of playing as well. You don't play the same. You're in the same genre, but you pick slightly differently. You've got different positions that you prefer to pick, and you've got all these things that are making this sound unique. And I think that really helped to add to what the bass was doing. You guys you fit into this space quite nicely, but not in a sense that you feel really squished and compressed. Everything still sounds open and big. And I think that was one of the main things that I wanted to get across with that track, is just making it sound like you guys are playing the song live. You're in this big open space and you're playing it live. So it's not like produced to a point where it sounds robotic, where everything is perfect.
Perfection is the enemy of great, right? Isn't that what they say?
That's what they say.
Yeah. Jamie, would you like to describe the drum recording process? Because you did something that previously you never done before. So
sure. Obviously, my process was I never worked with a metronome before, so I went in and my main focus was to be as best as possible working with a metronome, considering I never used one. So obviously, you could say I kept things really basic because I wanted to nail the best I can. And obviously, there was another thing that was in my mind as well. Is Liam, you mentioned about using the French grip on the cymbals.
That's it. Yeah. The different types of grips. Yeah.
For me, if I got too many things on my mind, normally I do make mistakes, but I like to think all in all, I conquered on what I set out to do, to be quite honest.
You did awesome. Yeah, just to elaborate on those grip styles, like traditionally, it depends on your drumming style in general, but a lot of drummers will have a specific way they grip the stick. If you grip it really tight, you're going to find that when you hit the cymbals, for example, there's going to be a lot less of that sustain. It's going to be more of a sharp, short sound. But if you have a slightly looser grip on the stick and you hit the cymbal's going to ring out for longer, and it's going to be more of there's going to be more sustain on the cymbal. So just those tiny little things of just switching the grip when you hit the cymbal can make all the difference in the overall recording. All of a sudden, if you're hitting these cymbals really loud with an open grip and you change the grip ever so slightly, it's going to be way easier to get a perfect balance of the cymbals compared to the rest of the drum shells in the mix. The shells are going to be able to punch through a lot more without the cymbals being as much of a problem. So that was kind of the basic idea behind that. But yeah, same again, playing to the metronome for the first time in a studio, it's a big ask of somebody, because you can go all of your drumming career without playing to a metronome. And I think what a lot of people do these days, I don't know if you're like this, but if you're playing to backing tracks and you're jamming along on your drums, you're going to find that you're naturally kind of playing to a metronome anyway, because the song may be perfectly in time. If it's 100 beats per minute, you're going to be playing at 100 beats per minute. So because of that,
we don't play to backing tracks. Whatever comes out of us live is absolutely organic, and sometimes that's great, and sometimes that's not so good, because we tend to speed through all the songs. We're just galloping away because we're pumped with adrenaline, and we got half an hour, and somehow we got for 7 songs, and they're like signaling from the from the sound desk, like, yo, you go on, keep playing. Like, what?
That's it.
I remember there was a little bit of a hurdle when we went from the straightforward bump ba bump ba bump to the da 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 da.
Oh yeah,
yes,
that took time.
I'm glad you guys brought that up, actually, because that's actually quite a hard thing to go into.
Which is weird, because it's when we play it live, we've kind of gotten used to playing it live, so there's no issue whatsoever. But the moment you put it in a studio setting, that's when it gets strange.
It's kind of
that's
like,
how we roll, baby. Live is easy.
you can get away with that stuff more in a live setting, because what I found, obviously, I don't know if you guys know, but I've done a bit of live sound engineering as well as the studio stuff. And what I find is you make a mistake 15-20 seconds down the line, especially when you're a musician playing on the stage, people have forgotten what you've done already. Like, it doesn't matter.
And when we play live, we put on, and I hope that we give off so much energy that even if you don't necessarily like this sort of music, you can't help but kind of like, it's like watching someone do something horrible on the internet, and you're like, oh, I can't look away.
I love that you're comparing us to watching something horrible.
Yeah, dude, I hope it's not like that.
No.
But the whole point around that sort of thing is, it's very much a visual aspect as well as the actual music coming out. People want to see that you're having fun.
Was there any point during the editing where you were like, oh, I've had enough of listening to the song?
Oh, dude, no, never. Like, I've worked on so many things over the years, and there comes a point in most songs where it's like, okay, I've heard the song enough to know exactly what they are going for and what the attention is. Obviously, it's important to have that perspective before we go into the recording process and know exactly what you guys are after. But I don't find it that ever becomes boring for me because I'm so used to doing it. And plus, it makes it the world better when it's an awesome song that I'm working on, or something that's in my kind of genre as well. Being a rock kind of guy, you guys are very much, you fit into that space. So no, didn't come.
We are grateful for your low standards. Thank you, sir.
Not at all.
I have a question for you, Liam.
Yeah.
How about that? How
That
about
is a
them
plot
apples?
twist. Blimey, wasn't prepared for this.
As a music producer, you're not just a music producer and engineer. You're also a musician, and a fine one is that. I would like to know, did you ever run into a band that you're recording and think, oh, god damn it, this sounds so good, I wish I wrote this riff, or that inspired you to go home and like pick up the instrument again, like get back at it?
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't have to be us. Would be nice if it was.
Yeah, I've had there's been a few occasions where that's happened actually. I won't go into names of bands or anything like that, just in case.
Oh no name dropping here.
But yeah, I've had a few occasions where I've listened to something and gone, how involved do I actually need to be with the production at this stage? Because it already sounds great. Like there may be like a few little tweaks. Maybe there's a section where the kick isn't quite locking with the vocal melody, and maybe we need to adjust some of the kick hits to make that happen. But yeah, there's been a few times where it's mainly like tones of stuff. Being a bass player, just so everybody watching knows, where I've gone, that's a really awesome sounding bass tone, and sometimes I'll have the conversation with whoever's playing the instrument. Like, what are you using? What is your setup? Like, what sort of bass are you using? What kind of picking style are you using? Are you using your fingers? Whatever. And yeah, I've had that a few times over the years, but unfortunately I don't play as much as what I used to now. I'm not in a band anymore, so it's not like I'm going out and gigging and doing that sort of stuff. I mainly only play bass to either demonstrate a part or as part of the production process. With that sort of stuff, it's mainly demonstrating stuff because it's way easier for me to visually show somebody how to play something rather than explain it. I could say, oh, let's just play like an A note, and we're going to do that in a crotchet groove, and there's going to be an eighth note in this particular section. People who aren't like clued up with music theory would look at me and go, what on earth did you just say to me? But then it's way easier for me to just go, can you play that? It's on that string, it's using these notes, it's that kind of groove. Yeah, cool, you've got it. Move on. So from that sort of sense, yeah. And
okay. Speaking of people who aren't very versed in music theory, did you ever get the polar opposite of that? Like people in the studio were like, oh Jesus, just put down the instrument and get a job.
So yeah,
and don't say us.
I mean, if it was us.
So are we talking like people that I've had come into the studio and I've just gone, okay, maybe you shouldn't play that instrument? Or are we talking like people which are really clued up with music theory that have come in and maybe like just made my life?
The first one.
The first one. Yeah, having people come into the studio and not being 100% confident on their instrument, that has happened a few times. And there was one situation where unfortunately the musician was I'm obviously not going to say the band name or what they were doing, but they couldn't play the part, and it got to the stage where the band actually had to take them aside and go, look, we need the session to keep going. We've been doing this for like an hour now. We need the session to keep moving forward. We've got two options. We either get somebody else to record the part, i.e. me or the other guitar player in that band to record another guitar part, or we scrap the part. And funnily enough, after that record, so to lead on from that, the other guitar player ended up recording that part.
Do you think this was more of a consequence of, let's say, red light fever? You know, like everybody shreds until they see that recording red light, and then like all the skill goes out the window, which I've done it to myself. I was alone in the room as soon as I hit record. I was like, oh, what was I playing? I don't know.
Well, I think it's super important. So I'll answer that in 2 steps. It's super important for you as a vocalist to have the band out of the room, I think, because it's a very emotional and delicate thing to do. You're literally expressing your vulnerabilities in a microphone to.
And that is indeed how we did it.
Exactly. And
everybody was in the other room eating crisps.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yum-yums.
Yum-yums, yeah.
And I was over here with you, Liam, howling away.
We were having the best time. Like, as far as I'm concerned, that was the best experience I've ever had. The guys were missing out. They came into the room and it was like, what's going on here? And I'm like,
so when we record the album, we will employ this strategy. Okay, everybody in the room. No crisps though, because it's gonna the mic's gonna pick up.
Oh yeah. Did we have you guys in the? Were you guys in the control room for some of it? Whilst you, and of course that talkback, Mike, you press the button and you can hear me and whatever's going on in the background as well. So you'll be halfway through a conversation. It's like, who's eating biscuits or crisps or whatever? What's going on?
Or someone just slurping from a drink really loudly.
Yeah. But so when you've got but going back to the original point, when you've got a vocalist who's performing in the room and you've got the rest of the bands potentially sitting in the control room with me, I've had situations where the people in the control room will be laughing about something completely unrelated to the singer, the person who's performing, but the vocalist doesn't know that because he can't hear what's going on in the room. He might just look at, you guys know there's a glass door between the control room and where the vocalist is performing. So the vocalist can look into the recording room and see all of us. Like, it's not like a completely separate room where there's no immediate reaction to what's going on next to them. So I've had situations where people have laughed and the vocalists have gone, why are you laughing at me? Like, and become really aware of what's going on in the control room, and it's made them feel uncomfortable. And you don't get the best performance out of vocalists from that happening because they're just so paranoid about what's going on.
And that's why you are such a wonderful producer, because not only you managed to make us all feel comfortable when we played, but you managed to somehow drag out the best possible performance out of us, even though we've only just met at the studio. I mean, you were a stranger to us, and somehow we clicked. We had such fantastic chemistry,
which I think is great, because the way I try to do this sort of stuff is I want to feel like a member of your band from minute one. I want to feel like you guys are comfortable with me and vice versa, and I am the fifth member of the band without actually physically being in the band. That's always been the intention.
Man, you if you ever want to play guitar, because I like to sing more than I like to sing.
Oh man, I can't remember the last time I picked up a guitar properly. Only to demonstrate a few chords, but yeah, it's been a while. Give me a few years to practice.
Okay. I would like to discuss about the drums and the bass a little bit, because for the guitar, we kind of all played the same parts we always play, but the drums and the bass had to do something different when we were in the studio. The bass had a different tone to it. And can I just say, Jordan just knocked it out of the park in 2 tries for all the songs. Like, he spent the least amount of time in the studio. He was just mostly there eating crisps for 3 days straight.
And yum-yums. Don't forget the yum-yums.
Don't forget the yum-yums.
But yeah, it's awesome when you've got a bass player that comes along and just goes, right, I know exactly what I want to play. If you've got any suggestions on, like,
Jordan is absolutely fantastic, because whatever song you give to him, he's going to listen to the song. He's going to listen to what you think the song should sound like, and then he's like, yeah, all right, let me get back to you. And then he comes back with these bass parts that you didn't even conceive. And somehow they're just, they're elevating the sound. And you're like, I'm over there playing guitar and looking at him playing like, whoa. Right?
I think that goes back to the whole experimentation thing, because I sit at home for an hour or two just going through a song and just going, what works there and what works here, and then I've got like 3 different ideas for the same bit of the song, and then it's like, let's see what works in the room, and then that's how it evolves. You know what I mean? So.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think what elevates Autumn Rain in particular, and the whole EP in general, is the bass sound. I'll be honest. It sounds modern, but at the same time organic and groovy, and it's just brilliant. I think we couldn't have done a better job with that song.
Guys. I think bass is one of those really hard things to get right, especially when we're going for the sort of genre that you guys are doing. It's dense. Like, the bass needs to be apparent, but it doesn't want to necessarily be overpowering what the guitar's doing, unless the bass is doing a very specific part. If it's the bass and guitars are all locking together and playing the same sort of rhythm, the same sort of groove, then it makes sense for the bass to just be sometimes a low extension of what the guitars are doing, just filling in that sub information, the low end information. And then other times it makes sense to have the bass stand out a bit more and be its own individual thing. But I feel like for Autumn Rain, the bass, it's very much its own thing, don't get me wrong. Like, you're playing your own individual part, but it really helps to fill in that information that the guitars can't play in the low end. It really fills in that space. And it's kind of, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the band Lower Than Atlantis.
I can't say I am.
No. Or Don Broco. Familiar with Don Broco?
I know you're a very much big fan of the core side of metal.
But they, anyway, getting back to more of the production things on that, they have this really, really cool sound where the guitars and bass just lock together, and it is just this movement of the same sort of sound. Everything's so locked together in place, and the low end really, really supports what the guitars are doing. And that was kind of the aim for what I wanted to get across with Autumn Rain. I wanted everything to just lock in place and be this one.
So you applied techniques used in metalcore.
Yep.
To tracks that are in a totally different sphere of music.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all these techniques, they kind of
See, only a producer would have thought of that.
You know, I heard something and I was like, I have an idea of where I want to take this, and if it's in line with your guys' vision, which I believe it was, then why not try it?
It sounds fantastic. We're extremely happy with the result.
Awesome, guys. Yeah, I'm glad. Cool, guys. So, have we got anything else that we wanted to go over at this stage? Is there anything else that anybody wanted to mention?
Just something about the vocals there. Because as the person who spoke the most throughout this interview, I'm the singer.
Well,
and, it's more of a detail that many people don't have no way of knowing that. But when we did the vocals for that, Topless or Not, it was at the end of 3 days of recording instruments. And on the Sunday when we did the vocals, I haven't eaten since dinner on Saturday, and all of a sudden it was 6 o'clock on Sunday evening.
Yep.
And I felt like I was gonna like black out a couple of times when I was singing it.
Oh, dude. Yeah, that's kind of a hard thing with vocalists. And
that's why the wolves came out.
Yeah, it's for anybody that does a lot of singing, it's important to eat something before you sing. Like, make sure you've got the energy to be able to sing beforehand, because otherwise it is quite...
No, you misunderstand. I had the energy, but being in the studio was such an intense thing for me. I wasn't hungry the whole day. I was like just running on adrenaline and rock and roll.
Yeah, I think because you've been in the studio for a few days and you're so eager to get your part down to record. You're so eager to get into the vocals, and I've been doing a thing recently where I'm actually recording the vocals pretty much as one of the first things. So we will get a guitar line down and then the vocals will go on top of that, and we'll actually end up doing drums last. And it's been really inspiring to do it that way around, because typically you would expect the drums to go first. And
so your suggestion would be, when we get back into the studio, and we will, for the full album, we should start with the vocals.
So I actually think we should start with guitar. Guitar should be the most important thing. And what I've been doing recently, and this might actually work quite nicely with you guys, because we were originally talking about using amp sims for your guitar sound rather than using a physical amplifier. Amp sims is such a common thing with the metal kind of genre anyway. It's pretty much a staple. And it's
They're all a simulation of SM57s on vintage 30s.
Yeah, the what is it, the 5150, I think, as well,
yeah,
especially for that metal sound. Yeah.
Or the dual rectifiers, which sound amazing, but when everyone has it,
it's like, you sound like the previous record that somebody else has just done. Don't get me wrong, I love those things. They are great.
Oh, trust me, if we could afford it, we'd have it. But let's just because that's the thing about the recording. It's also like a timestamp.
Yeah.
For where you were at that point in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean my process is completely different now to when I recorded with you guys originally. Like, it is completely different. If you expect the same experience, the majority of it is going to be the same way I go about recording vocals and all that sort of stuff, but it's the order in which I do things these days is slightly different, and it's worked out quite nicely. And I'll kind of get into a little bit of the detail of why I do guitars first now as opposed to getting the drums down. Because if you record the drums first of all, you are locked into the drum performance. So if you...
My friend, our only expectations are just to be in your lovely company in your studio, and we just trust the process like we did last time, and I'm sure the results will be spectacular.
You're too kind. Cool, guys. So we've got 6 minutes and 10 seconds left on this little weird thing in the corner that keeps forcing us to restart the conversation.
I would like to say at the end of this very long video, thank you to everybody for joining us. Thank you to everybody for supporting us and sticking with us, even though, excuse me, we haven't been as present in the past couple of months as we used to be. But that's also something that we're working on rectifying. And thank you very much, Liam, not just for this interview, but for everything you've done for us. We're grateful, and I'll catch you and everyone else next time. Yeah.
See you in the next episode.
See you next time. Can anybody do a radio style voice to end this? See you next time.
Same channel, same place next time.
And Happy New Year, everyone, because this is our first actually proper, I don't know.
Yeah, apparently it's 2023 now, as people.
Whatever that means.
When did that happen?
Whatever that means.
No idea.